We've been working through all the pages in the manual of the Husqvarna Viking Designer EPIC 2. So we're up to design positioning. Now what does that mean? In a short, it means to me that I can hoop something crooked and it will help me realign it, and I don't have to get things perfectly hooped when I'm putting a project together. So I have a T-towel that I've marked a center position on, and I'm going to be stitching out the Sewing Mastery logo on it. So this is what we're going for, but I'm going to be putting my new towel in here sideways, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to position a design exactly where my mark is. We'll also be featuring how to do a quick basting in the hoop. So that will be something that you'll see me do as I go. Now, anytime I work with T-towels, number one, you want to pre-wash your T-towels before you stitch on them. Number two, the best stabilizer I love is like a aqua mesh. So it's almost like the fabric-like, but it is to wash out when I'm done. And it provides that nice stabilizer while I'm doing the stitching, and then completely disappears. So I happen to keep my logo on the MySewNet cloud account, and so it's always at my fingertips no matter which machine I'm working at. So I'm going to go ahead and touch and hold it. And usually when I'm doing something where I know I'm going to not try to get everything in the hoop perfectly, I'm going to just let it come into the center. If it's kind of off to the side, you can center it, and that is it. Choose your hoop size, which is the 120 by 120. That's the size it fits in, and go ahead and touch go. Confirm all your settings and then let the embroidery arm move into position. At this point, you can go ahead and put the hoop on the machine. And now for the magic. So design positioning is actually on the embroidery side of your machine. So you have to go ahead and do the go, get to this screen, your color information comes up. You'll find design positioning on the lower part of the screen. It's the little flower with kind of a bullseye in the middle of it. So this is a great way to, like I'm showing you first, how to just kind of make something not crooked if it's not hooped perfectly. But it's also a great way that if you have a design and you want to hook another design to it, it's how you can move something into position. You can also use this if for any chance your fabric has come out of the hoop. Maybe you thought you were done and you weren't, so you're trying to put the fabric back in the hoop and you do, but things aren't exactly where you want. You can come to this screen and step by step relocate your design to where you need it to be. So I'm going to start by going ahead and putting my fabric in the nearby vicinity of where I want it to stitch. I could do a little 505 spray, and then that would help hold everything in place. I might even do it, okay, I don't normally spray while something's on the hoop, but I'm going to give it a little stick. It's like Post-it note in a can. I love a little 505 spray. So I've got it very sideways. The line is just kind of doing a horizontal thing. So first off, go ahead and touch step 1. So there's multiple steps here. Steps 1 and 2 will be for moving a design left and right. And if you have to twist your design like I am going to, we have steps 3 and 4. I'm going to walk you through each. Step 1 says, move the blue cursor to a point of your design that you want to match. So here's what I want to show you. Steps 1 and 3 are actually things we're going to do by looking at the screen. Steps 2 and 4 have a picture of a hoop on them, and that means that you're going to be looking at the hoop. So I'm going to again show you what that means. So right now this blue cursor is loose. So you can set that wherever you want it to be. So I want the logo here to actually sit on the line that I drew. So first thing we need to do is really find and move the blue cursor to the lowest part of the letter S. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to utilize the magnifying glass and zoom in on the actual point. So you can see that the blue cursor is really not at the lowest part of that line. So I'm going to go ahead, I can move it with my finger, or I can go ahead and use the little arrows and find the bottom of that design. Now, once that is set, I can go ahead and push step 2. So remember step 2, it locks the first point, and now we're going to look at the hoop. And it says move the design to align the locked point with with the desired position on the fabric. So I can do actually one of two things. I can actually lift this fabric and move the needle to the line. That's one way. Or I could just go ahead and use the arrows on screen and move this down until it sits and taps. I can see I'm right on that line. Right now, I might go up just a touch. Remember, every time you touch one of those arrows, it's only 1/10 of a millimeter. So that means you really can fine tune exactly where you want a design to be. So after I've done that, make sure you don't leave the needle in the fabric. The machine won't let you do that anyway. But then we're going to set it so we can pivot the design and bring it up into position over here. And then before we're completely done, we'll make sure that we're actually in the center of the tea towel. So let's go ahead and zoom back out on the entire design and go to step 3. So 3 and 4 is for the pivoting part of our design, and our new message says move the blue cursor, now we have a blue cursor there, to another part of the design that you want to match. So I'm going to find another location kind of at the bottom of one of those letters. Let's zoom in. It's kind of grayed out here, but I can kind of see where one of those stitches are, and then I can go ahead and go to step 4. So step 4 has a picture of a hoop. So now we're going to come over and look at the hoop, and then we're going to use these arrows here to rotate or pivot that design up until it meets the line. If you don't know which arrow to touch, start touching one. If it doesn't pivot to the right direction, then go ahead and use the other arrow. It's that easy. But I'm getting really close to where I want my lower stitch to touch that line. And again, such small movements are key to really getting in. I can tell I can need to go up a handful of movements here, touching that line each time until it is perfectly positioned. I like that. Now I did mention that I really want to make sure that this whole thing is centered, because that's the center of my towel. To do that, come back to step 1, touch and open the centering position. Let's zoom out so you can see the whole entire design and have it show you the center point. Next, go to step 2, and then we can see over here if we are lined up or not. We're really, really close here, but I do see that I want to move it just a little bit over, so I'm right on the vertical line that I'm looking at, and then I know that it's going to stitch in the center of my towel. Now, don't worry that it's a little bit high here, because remember, we've tilted it, and we also we're using letters that go below this line and above this line. So really, I'm just using the line as my center point, the vertical line that is. When you're ready to confirm your location, touch the check mark, and that will bring your design into the embroidery screen, all ready, set to start, but at the new position and angle. Now, because this towel is not attached to the stabilizer, we're going to engage the Basting Box feature found on the color block list, and it has two options: based around the design and or based around the hoop. So I really don't need it around the whole entire hoop. I really just want it around the design, and that's sufficient for today. You'll notice that it will put a note, and it says fix, and a new dotted box has come up on my screen. And yes, if you wanted to access that basting box, you could have touched fix on the front of your machine for that same feature. I love that that is at my fingertips because I do use it that much. So with your first color loaded up, I would go ahead and stitch that basting box. On T-tails, I am a fan of a little water-soluble stabilizer on the top, so I'm going to lay that there. This is another great reason to use your basting in the hoop feature, because what I'll do is secure this whole piece as well, because it's usually the last thing that's placed and it's floating on top of the project. So let's go ahead and push the start button. I'm going to just kind of hold that in position. You're going to notice that it's going to stitch away from us first with some small stitches, and then those long, quickly stitched stitches all the way around. And I know this kind of looks a little awkward with that particular angle, but trust me, because of the way we hooped it, that's exactly where we want it. When you need something to turn out perfect every single time, make sure that you have explored how to use design positioning. I'm actually going to show you one more key feature with this particular part and function of this machine that is so wonderful. I've actually brought up our little paisley design that we did earlier on our screen, and I decided I wanted to add one more to this fabric. And I wanted to actually come in and attach to the one that already exists. So if you already have a design on your fabric and you want it and something new to line up to it, we're going to use design positioning in pretty much the same way. So I've gone ahead and rotated the design 180 degrees. Go ahead and go into design positioning. And what I want to do is actually find where the two little kind of ends will touch. So as we do these steps again, this time I'm only using the first two steps. We're not going to do any rotating. So what I'm going to do is pick step 1 and then move the cursor to be very close to the little end of this design, because that's what I want it to actually touch. So the first part of this design is to select where you want your needle to get positioned from. Next, let's go to step 2. And with that, we're going to be able to go over to the hoop. Remember, hoop picture means we're going to look on our fabric, and you can use the arrows or you can touch and drag the design into a nearby vicinity, get really close to where we need to be, and then be able to come in. Now remember, the needle is at the lowest part of that little guy that was on our screen, and I want to just bring it back up just a little bit so we can actually touch the two parts together. So I want to just leave no little gap. I can see that that's exactly where I want it to stitch. And so if I was just go ahead and start, we'll be able to connect those two designs together instantly. So design positioning, hooping crooked, and adding something to an item that already exists is all possible with this feature in the Viking Designer EPIC 2. And you can use the arrows or you can touch and drag the design into a nearby vicinity, get really close to where we need to be, and then be able to come in. Now remember, the needle is at the lowest part of that little guy that was on our screen, and I want to just bring it back up just a little bit so we can actually touch the two parts together. So I want to just leave no little gap. I can see that that's exactly where I want it to stitch. And so if I was just to go ahead and start, we'll be able to connect those two designs together instantly. So design positioning, hooping crooked, and adding something to an item that already exists is all possible with this feature in the Viking Designer EPIC 2.